LG India has quietly snuck in the G7 Plus Think without any fanfare, which is really odd considering its aggressive price of 39,990 rupees. This puts it smack against the 8GB version of the OnePlus 6 and on paper appears to have even better specifications. Now the OnePlus 6 has been a solid recommendation so far, although we always felt that features like wireless charging and waterproofing would have completed the package nicely. The G7 Plus Think addresses all of these shortcomings, and now it's time to see if it truly is the phone the OnePlus should have been all along. Now the Think moniker in the G7 Plus signifies the use of artificial intelligence, which was introduced by LG at this year's CES. The G7 Plus Think features an aluminium frame with good width on the sides so it's easy to grip, and you get Corning Gorilla Glass 5 for the front and back. The glass blends in quite seamlessly with the metal so you barely feel the edges. The side effect of this though is fingerprints and smudges, which we know is hard to avoid, but the G7 Plus Think attracts far more than usual. There's a dedicated Google Assistant button which can be disabled through the settings if you don't want to use it, but LG doesn't let you remap it to anything else. When your phone is unlocked, a single press opens Google Assistant, while a double press opens Google Lens. There's a 6.1-inch IPS panel which boasts of an impressive 1000 nits of brightness, which translates to excellent legibility under direct sunlight. You also get a QHD Plus resolution, so images and text look sharp. The display also supports HDR10 standard, which adds more dynamism to the colors when viewing compatible videos. The G7 Plus Think has a notch too, or as LG calls it, a new second screen. You have the option to hide it and add different backgrounds, but we found the default black one looks the best. You can enable the always on display feature too, which also gives you interactive toggles for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. and playback buttons for music, but since this isn't an OLED panel, the backlight for the entire display needs to stay on instead of just the required pixels. The notched area has enough room for the earpiece, sensors, notification LED and a front camera. The bezels around the display aren't very slim, and there's a noticeable chin at the bottom too. The hybrid SIM slot is placed on the top, which supports two 4G VoLTE connections at the same time. At the bottom, we have a 3.5mm headphone socket, a USB Type-C port and a single speaker grille. Now, despite not having a stereo speaker setup, the phone uses the body as an acoustic chamber, which helps amplify the volume. During audio playback, you can actually feel the back of the phone vibrate. That said, the mono speaker does get impressively loud, which is nice. Face Unlock kicks in when you raise the phone upwards towards you, but it isn't too secure at the default setting. It's quick, but we found that a simple 2D picture of the registered face is enough to fool it. Now you can enable the advanced face recognition toggle, which makes things a bit more secure, but authentication takes longer and it doesn't really work too well in low light. Being a flagship smartphone, LG has gone with Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 octa-core SoC with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. The phone is also IP68 certified for dust and water resistance and is also shock resistant to some degree thanks to the military standard certification. At the time of this review, our retail unit was running on Android 8 Oreo with a June 1 security patch. Android is heavily customized here, and there's loads of additions made to the software which lets you really fine-tune your user experience. However, gestures for navigation is noticeably missing. The phone runs pretty much flawlessly with day-to-day usage. The interface feels snappy, and the phone doesn't really get bogged down even with plenty of apps running in the background. Call quality is good and it doesn't really heat up with general usage. Games run fine too, including newer titles like PUBG and Asphalt 9 Legends. The phone does get quite warm during gaming or even with heavy camera use, but not to a point where it's uncomfortable to hold. Now, LG's flagships have often been lauded for having good audio, and the G7 Plus Think is no different. The quad DAC makes a comeback along with other audio enhancements such as DTS-X 3D surround sound for wired headphones. The bundle headphones are not bad either, as they provide decent ambient noise isolation and good audio quality. The default music player also has some gimmicky effects called Flashlight and Boombox Show, which uses the rear LED flash for a strobe light effect and 3D visualizations on the display. LG's Think AI can be seen in action in the camera app. With AI Cam turned on, the camera app scans the scene and automatically adjusts the exposure, colors, and even applies necessary filters. LG does some cool visualizations where the words fade in and out, Sherlock Holmes style, in the viewfinder as the AI tries to figure out the subject in focus. Now, due to the close partnership with Google, the G7 ThinQ also gets AR stickers from its Pixel line of smartphones. The main 16-megapixel sensor has an f1.6 aperture, while the second wide-angle 16-megapixel sensor gets an f1.9 aperture. The main sensor captures good detail in close-ups and landscapes along with pleasing colors. However, edges around subjects could have been more distinct. The HDR feature kicks in automatically, but we found portions of bright areas to still appear overexposed. The wide-angle camera is useful when shooting landscapes or a group of people, and barrel distortion isn't much of an issue here. Details are fairly good in low light too. The camera app has a feature called Super Bright Camera, which combines the data of 4 pixels into one, thus giving you better detail, but at the cost of resolution. There's OIS for the primary sensor, which helps steady shots in unfavorable light. The phone does a good job with edge detection in portrait mode, and the amount of background blur can be adjusted before and after you take the shot. Video recording maxes out at 4K 30fps, but you don't get electronic stabilization here. Videos shot at this resolution have slightly boosted colors, which is most evident when shooting with a wide-angle sensor. There have been reports of an update which brought 4K 60fps recording to the phone, but our unit didn't seem to have it. Stabilization is decent at 1080p 30fps, and focusing speed is quick too, but there is a noticeable shimmer in the footage which isn't present when using the wide-angle lens, oddly. There's a comprehensive manual mode which lets you tweak audio parameters like gain and filter out wind noise. There's slow motion video too, which shoots at 240fps, but the quality is quite average. The Cine video mode is pretty cool as it lets you add filters and cinematic zoom effects to your video. The front 8-megapixel sensor captures good selfies, and the AI features work here too. There's no auto HDR feature here sadly, so you can either have it on or off, and it doesn't seem to work too well at all times. The stabilization works decently well here though, which is good if you're into vlogging. In low light, you have the option to use a screen flash to improve image quality. The 3000 mAh battery easily lasts an entire workday, but getting a complete day's worth of use is a bit challenging, especially if you game a lot. Our internal battery test ran for about 11 hours and 48 minutes, which is just slightly above average. There's Qualcomm's Quick Charge 3.0 fast charging support, which charges the phone up to about 42% in about half an hour. However, charging the phone completely still takes a little under 2 hours. The G7 ThinQ is a solid offering from LG, but more importantly, it's available at a very aggressive price. For all those who were on the fence about the OnePlus 6 due to the lack of some features like waterproofing and wireless charging, the G7 ThinQ is a very good alternative. LG's offering also features a more useful secondary camera, expandable storage, an excellent mono speaker, and a vivid and crisp display. Now, there are some aspects of the phone which might not be to everyone's liking. For instance, the software has an overwhelming number of features which might seem intimidating for some. The face unlock is kind of slow too, and the cameras, while good, are missing some advanced features such as stabilization at 4K and even super slow motion recording. Now, barring these few niggles, LG seems to have thrown in everything but the kitchen sink into the G7 ThinQ, and looking at it purely from a value perspective, it's kind of hard to beat. So thanks for watching our review, and for all things tech, log on to gadgets360.com.